I had a great uncle who really had been a mentor to me, and he was in international construction. And he came to me one day, and he was looking at these houses, and he's like, "Why don't you do commercial?" And my first answer was like, "Hey, I can't afford to do that." And he said, "It's not what you think." He said, "It might be an extra zero." He said, "But really, I think you're going to enjoy it a lot more." I said, "Because you have an advantage in it, and you're just not using it." And he said, "You have no advantages in the houses, and you're making money doing that." And the more I got to thinking about it, I'm like, you know what? He's right.
If you're an active real estate investor and you're looking to do larger deals, you're in the right place. We are going to go and take the conceptual type of stuff that you listen to from other real estate podcasts and bring it down to the tactical, the nitty gritty, the actual actionable types of things that other real estate investors that went big did to grow their own real estate empire. You're listening to the Go Big Live podcast. I'm your host, Matt Druin.
Hey, what is up, everybody? I am Matt Druin, the host of the Go Big Live Real Estate Investors Podcast. I have a very special guest on with me today, Mr. Cole Bigbee. A little bit about Cole. Cole started his real estate journey by flipping 2 houses before he went to work with his family's metal building manufacturing company. It did not take him long to realize that he had the expertise and materials that could give him a competitive edge, not only in the building manufacturing space, but also in the development and investing space. So you're not going to want to miss this. This is definitely an interesting angle. We're going to talk today about how you can leverage your internal strengths and assets to grow your real estate empire, regardless of, where you come from. So thank you so much for coming on the show, Cole. I appreciate it, man.
Hey, Matt, thanks for having me. I'm excited about it. I've been a fan of the podcast for a while and just happy to be a part of it. Hopefully help some of your guests out. So.
Absolutely. Yeah. Before we get to your origin story, I've been following you as well. And some of the stuff I watched a YouTube video, they got like super techie on the manufactured steel building industry. And I was really fascinated by it. And it's become a huge thing just in terms of, how we can bring not just housing, product that we need for businesses as we repatriate manufacturing back into the States. So this is just definitely looking forward to this. So I like to start the first question off with, you were born and now you're here. What happened in between?
A lot of learning. So I was born in Muscle Shoals, Alabama, stayed here. I had all my family here from both sides. So I was fortunate to get to be around a lot of family and a different walks of life. I had family that was into construction, rodeo, horses. And then I had another side, that were involved in, government, the police force. And so really got to see 2 different sides, I guess, of the table. And really learned from that and had a lot of great people in my life and helped lead me to where I am today. So
let's start a little bit on why real estate. I mean, I read your bio. You flipped a couple houses and that sort of thing. Like, out of everything in terms of your experience with how you grew up and that sort of thing, what led you to real estate and flipping houses to begin with?
So I guess when I come home from college, I went to college in Stephenville, Texas. I started my college career there and I actually finished it in Florence, Alabama. But when I moved home from Texas, I was looking for something else in my life. I knew there was something more. I knew that I was meant for something, but I think at every man's point or every woman's point when they hit a certain age of, what am I supposed to be doing, or what do I really want to do and what's calling me? And it started with just kind of a junky house. I was like, hey, I've seen it on TV. I knew nothing about it. I never read a book. I was like, hey, here's a house. It's cheap. I think I can make some money at it. So, off and away I went, bought a house for nothing and beat away at it for like 8 months. When me and my fiance at the time moved into the house and sold it and made a little money, I'm like, you know what? This is all right. So, hey, let's do this again to another house. So we bought another house and, it went a little smoother this time. We moved into it, lived in it for 2 years and sold it and made a little more money. So now I was starting to kind of see how some of that really worked when I was like, hey, maybe I can just up this scale a little bit. And I had a great uncle who really had been a mentor to me. And he was in international construction. And he came to me one day and he was looking at these houses and he's like, why don't you do commercial? And I was like, I said, my first answer was like, hey, I can't afford to do that. And he said, it's not what you think. He said, it might be an extra zero. He said, but really, I think you're going to enjoy it a lot more. I said, because you have an advantage in it and you're just not using it. And he said, you have no advantages in the houses and you're making money doing that. And the more I got to thinking about it, I'm like, you know what? He's right. And so I went from there and found a smaller commercial building that I bought. Really, I put a canopy on it. I painted it. I cleaned it, really did minimal work and boom, leased it out, and I was like, okay. So then it just kind of took from there and led to a little bit bigger deal every time. So.
So let's talk about the first deal. We want to make a case study today.
Yeah.
We were talking about that in the green room. So this was kind of like a build to rent model, industrial. Kind of tell me the origin of that deal. Like what inspired you to do that? And kind of take me from there.
Yeah, so after doing a couple of those small warehouses here around town, there's a city here called Huntsville, Alabama. It's about 45 minutes to an hour from where I live. And it's a big tech community, a lot of government there, a lot of defense contractors, and just a growing community. It's now the largest city in the state. And so, I used to go over there a lot and I would drive around these industrial parks and I'm like, man, these are all full. Like there's not an empty building. There's not a for sale sign. There's not even a for lease sign out here, And if you did see something that was vacant, it was older products. So it just, low ceilings, no dock doors, just stuff that really didn't make sense for the way business was moving now. And I was fortunate to meet an older gentleman who did business over there. And that's all he did. He built 10,000 square foot warehouses. He put 3 offices in them, 2 bathrooms, 1 loading dock, and 1 drive-through door.
Mhm.
And he was getting into his 80s and really kind of stepped back from building. And I was fortunate that he wanted to sell me and my partner some land that he had because he was kind of getting out of his partnerships and really toning it down and trying to get his family matters in order.
Mhm.
And so he had offered us that deal it was 7 acres and it was a very fair deal, something we couldn't turn down. And I'm like, yeah, we'll do that, just kind of jumped at it. And so, we thought, hey, what can we do here? We bought 7 acres and we're like, we don't even know how to lay this out. Like I've only built 1 building before. Like this
Mhm.
is 7 acres. It's not like all a bunch of road frontage where you can just set some individual lots up like you would a house. Like, hey, this is kind of like a pie shape. It's kind of narrow road frontage, but it gets deeper as we go. What can we do here?
Mhm.
And so, trying to figure out the right people to get with and, finally leading us to a surveyor that had done some layouts and he kind of just did us a rough layout of what it could look like. And we're like, man, we can fit 10,000 square foot buildings on here. Like,
Mhm.
hey, let's do it, and at first it scared us a little bit and we're like, oh, okay, well, let's just build 1, but this is our master plan for this site. Let's build 1, see how it goes.
Mhm.
And then after it's leased, we'll start the second one, we'll lease it, we'll start the third one. So once we started that first build, it, still went vertical. And we had a signed contract, lease in hand and deposit. And we're like, well, dang, we need to start the second one. So start the second one, same thing happens. And then after that, it just kind of snowballed. And we're like, well, hey, we need to just go ahead and finish this out because it's good times. At the time, this was 2019. So leading up to the pandemic, I mean, things were just boom. So the timing was getting right there as well. And we pressed forward and finished that project in 2020, finished the 6 buildings, all had great tenants, all cash flowing. And that was my big first deal.
So let's back up a little bit. Let's talk about the capital
Yeah.
stack. I mean, how did you buy this land? Was it with your own cash? Did you get some seller financing on that? Tell me about that.
Yeah, so I was lucky enough to get a partner that not only was he a GC, but he also brought a lot of capital to the deal. So we actually had him do some private financing on the front end. And then once we finished that, we actually refinanced out of it. So I was fortunate enough to find somebody that could cash roll that whole deal. So made it very simple, made things go a lot smoother. And so being able to refinance out of that at the end, I mean, talking about 3.5% rates. I mean, it was a golden deal for me. So even though I was paying a little higher interest rate on the front end for the private money, it was worth it in the long run.
So this GC they only provided they were just a money partner. Did they do the actual construction during the project or what?
Yeah, so they actually did. So as part of that deal, he waived his actual GC fee. So really, his guys were just working for what they cost.
Mhm.
He had his own sub. So really, it was a great deal for me. So I helped handle the actual steel building portion, the erection, and the pre-construction part of it. But he took it from once it hit the ground to actually making sure it was followed through and finished out.
So let's back up a little bit here. How did you buy this land? Was it with your own cash? Did you get some seller financing on that? Tell me about that.
So
So let's back up a little bit here.
Mhm.
Where did this relationship come from? Was this a family friend, or was this somebody that you met out randomly one day and just got struck up a conversation? Tell me a little bit about that story.
Yeah. So my uncle on my mom's side, he was a home builder in the area, and he actually built nicer homes on the river. He normally didn't build anything less than 3,000 square feet, and it was all custom. And there was a gentleman that actually came and bought his business, and that this was the guy. He bought the business and started building homes with my uncle. And then he actually realized too that he wanted to get into more commercial work. So I knew him a little bit on the front end through my uncle, but didn't really reach out to him until I realized that I wanted to step my game up. And I just, randomly shot him an email one day about, hey, I would like to go to this area and build some buildings. I think there's good opportunity. And then he just immediately emailed me back, and we were in a truck 2 days later headed to look at the site to see if it would work. So he had cash and he was looking for a place to put it. And so the timing and everything it couldn't have been more perfect. So,
So let's talk about the total capital stack, because you had land acquisition, you had construction. Tell me about like
Mhm.
the total project cost, and kind of try to break it down for me if you can remember the details on it.
Yeah, so I believe that land cost was 37,000 an acre
Hmm.
is what that worked out to. Construction, so 610, we had five of those 10,000 square foot buildings. They were about $50 a square foot. And that was construction with land cost included, because they were straightforward. We didn't have to do a whole lot of site work to it.
Hmm.
So that's what we had in total build, finishing those out. And on one of those buildings, we did some tenant upgrades. So that one we wind up having about $65 a square foot in that building. So you're talking, what's that? A little over about 3 million. Is that right?
So who had the $3 million laying around? Was it this GC, or did you bring in some construction financing? Tell me about that a little bit further.
Well, I know like the GC that had the private financing, I know on the back end, he was just using his lines of credit is what
Mhm.
he was doing, which I was totally okay with, because we were both paying the higher interest rate, even though he was using his lines of credit and his financing on the back end. So, but it helped make the process a heck of a lot smoother, than really having to deal with a bank on that size project on the front end. So,
That's awesome. No banks through the construction process. I mean, I know a lot of people are like, "Oh, we want to get whether you're doing a multifamily deal or an industrial deal and that sort of thing. If you can line up the private financing, whatever structure that may be on a front end, and not get banks involved right from the get go, it makes the project run so much smoother. You don't have all this inspection process, and that construction financing gets hella expensive as well.
oh, 100%. Just even think about the appraisal and the closing cost and all that involved in it. And then just the time spent that you've wasted,
Mhm.
not necessarily wasted, but you could spend 60 days just waiting to see if you were going to get approved or not and get any money to start with. So a lot of time that kills land deals. If you're trying to make a deal on the land and it's good, but you're trying to couple it all with some construction money, like a deal could be gone by the time you get the money. So,
100%. Now, what built your confidence on this whole thesis for this whole project was after the walls got tilted up on that first building. How did you get that tenant prospect? Did you list this deal with a broker, or did you put a shingle out out in the yard there? What about that?
so when we were originally looking at sites and riding around looking, and if there was a building available, we were like, okay, well, whose real estate sign is that?
Hmm.
And who does the most industrial deals. So after making some calls in the area and looking at signs, we realized there was one guy there with the local real estate company. That was his bread and butter, was just industrial. He didn't do office, he didn't do anything else. Like that was it, and he was very good at what he does. So when we stuck a shovel in the ground, we kind of called him and got him out there and said, hey, this is what we're looking to do. He's like, hey, this is going to lease well. And he really took us from there. And I mean, that broker made the difference, because we really didn't have to do anything. He made sure the paperwork was right. He made sure the deal was good for us and for them. And, and he was great to work with all the way around. Great follow up. He was great after the deal and great before the deal. So,
So, what kind of advisory value did this broker bring to the table to you? Like, can you give me some specifics in terms of examples on, hey, if you build this, you could probably get a range between X amount per square foot. Like, tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah. So when we first met with him, we kind of had an idea of what we would get, which at the time and back in end of 2018 for that size building, we were like, hey, can we get $5 a square foot or can we get 475 a square foot once we build this?
Mhm.
Eh,
All right. So back up, you
Yeah.
were
So
talking about it was four. You were talking about maybe we can get $4 a square foot, maybe 425 a square foot. Kind of take me from there, and then we'll edit out the when it went dark.
yeah, sorry about that. So yeah. And he's like, I think I can even get you up to $5. And so the first deal we did, he actually got us 5.25. So he went in kind of at the lower and he said at the higher and he said, look, on these size buildings, he said, you're not, he said, you're probably either going to get a defense contractor that has maybe a 3-year contract, with the Army. So they're looking for a building for 3 years. And hey, if they get another one, they'll stay. He said, but if not, they'll probably be gone.
Hmm.
And he said, some of these companies, they are starter companies. He said, so, hey, it is possible that they could go dark
Hmm.
in a year or two. He said, so I want to make that clear. He said, but when you pay my commission, let's just say that we sign a 3-year lease, but they only stay a year. He's like, I'm going to backfill that. He said, I'll find somebody for it. And then I'll just credit you back that money that you already paid me. So that gave us a lot of confidence in knowing that, hey, if this first one didn't work out, the next one would. But, out of all the tenants that have been put in that building, I know we've since sold the facility. I don't think but one of them has moved out. So
Hmm.
the tenant quality has been great.
Yeah, absolutely. So what was you had a handful of buildings here. What was the tenant mix? Was it all government defense contractors, or was there a mix between those?
No, it was kind of weird. So there was one company, they were kind of a regional company. So they sold wholesale flooring, wholesale tile, cabinetry, stuff and it was really for home builders. So only home builders, not the public, could come over there, buy bulk goods to, for flooring and so forth. We had one guy that they literally did doors and hardware for commercial type projects. So, any kind of apartment complex, government project, they strictly supplied doors. They did special manufacturing for doors. We had a defense contractor that he outfitted like Humvees. So, there'd be like
Huh.
these Army Humvees show up and it was a secure facility. Like you just didn't go and knock on the door. Everything blocked up tight. Humvee comes in, door shuts, that's it. So you don't see those guys. And then after that, it was a weird mix. So we had a guy take over 2 buildings that did indoor soccer private training.
Mhm.
And so he put 2 fields inside there. And that's what I thought it was crazy. I'm like, there's no way this guy's going to get his bills paid. Like hey, he's doing private soccer training and that's probably our best tenant. If you want the truth. So he has 2 fields and he's doing private soccer training all day at both of them. And he's actually making a man. I think he's making more than all the other guys there. So the one-off tenant that I didn't think was going to work, he's actually the best one. So
Now, you mentioned that you had sold this facility. Was it your business
Mhm.
plan right from the get-go to lease this up, stabilizing it, and then selling it? Or what was the business plan from the beginning? Like, how did this disposition come about?
I don't think we really had an end game inside as far as, hey, are we going to sell and keep it? I think it was like, hey, let's just make sure we keep our shirts.
Mhm.
So
Yeah, so how did the disposition come about? Was it the broker brought you an unsolicited offer from an investor or what?
better.
There
Yeah,
we
we're
go.
back.
Sorry. I don't know. Might be this metal building I'm in. So
Yeah, I
I'll
know.
try
So,
to
so
get
you're
to it.
are you in a metal building right now?
I am. Oh yeah.
Yeah. For some reason, there's also cell signals like tend to not perform very well in metal
Yeah,
buildings.
we have like a antenna booster right over here, but I don't know, man. So I apologize for that. We'll try to get through it for you so you don't have to worry about that again. So
Oh no, yeah, no worries, no worries. Okay, so we'll start recording again. So let me just think about what we were talking about before. Okay, so we were talking about the sale of the building,
we're talking about the
and
sale.
then
That's right.
yeah, so Cole, tell me about how this disposition came about. Was it like the broker was leasing for you, brought you an unsolicited offer from an investor? What happened?
Yeah, so it was actually a different broker that approached us and he was like, hey, he knew us and was like, hey, I got some clients that are actually looking for this kind of space. They just want to stick it in their portfolio. And would you be interested in selling? And we thought about it and we're like, you know what? Yeah, I think we would because we were eyeing some property next door to, and we're like, hey, we could just 1031 that, and
Mhm.
just kind of get right into it and do this all over again and maybe do it on a little bit bigger scale. And so it led to that. And it was literally the first guy that came to us. They were great to work with, and we wound up making a deal with them. So,
Yeah. So what kind of like a gain did you get on this sale? Like what were the financials on the back end of this disposition?
yeah. So we wound up selling, I think it was like at a 7.25 cap, which was like a $1.1 million profit on that deal. And so
Wow.
this was right in the heart of COVID, kind of when COVID started, that we got this deal sold. And it was a great deal then, but it was, who would have known if I could just held it for 6 more months, I probably could have made a lot more. But, at the time it was great. And I'm glad it worked out because I learned so much doing that. And I was able to apply that to the next project and make it a lot smoother.
This is interesting. We talk about 1031 exchanges a lot, but never have
Mhm.
we ever talked about a 1031 exchange in terms of putting it into another property that needed to be built from the ground up. Tell us about the mechanics of that in terms of like how you had to structure it with your qualified
Yeah.
intermediary in terms of like building that whole thing out.
Yeah, and so we actually had to do a reverse 1031 exchange, which I'd never even done a regular 1031 exchange, much less now you're throwing a reverse into it, because we went ahead and got ahead of it and bought the property next door. Wow, was that a good deal? But we bought it in a separate entity so we could, hey, if it works out, we can make something work. And so we were fortunate to get set up with a guy that was very skilled in that and a law firm that helped us kind of work through that deal. And so we were able to fast track and go ahead and spend all that money and get it put back into the new project next door. So,
So for the dummies like myself out there that don't know what the heck a reverse 1031 exchange is, like tell us about that from a conceptual level.
well, you're probably smarter about it than I am. So that's why I had to reach out. But, from my understanding, so just a regular 1031 is, hey, we bought a building, we sold it, and we found a building next door, bought it, we had to spend the minimum of what we sold it for, to get the 1031. But a reverse, is almost, hey, if it's owned in a different entity, and the way they have to set it up is, I guess the intermediary has to become the purchaser at that point. From my recollection, because that's the only time I've done it, and we're backing into paying the intermediary to get that property finished out and take it over and properly do it. So I don't know if that was a really good explanation or not, because I, I left it up to the smart people to handle that for me. So
It's a common theme with the show in that, hey, I'm not the smartest person in the room. I actually seek to be the dumbest person in the room and just surround myself with a bunch of smart people to do these types of things. Because there's things out there, they're just like, you can go to YouTube University and try to educate yourself on it, but you're just going to make your head hurt. And by doing it yourself, you're not, we talk in real estate about the power of leverage through bank financing and all that other stuff, right? But we talk very seldomly about the power of leverage in terms of being able to leverage somebody's decades of experience with a certain subject matter and what type of value that brings. I think it brings more value than the leverage brought about through bank financing, to be completely honest.
yeah, so I'm like you. I learn more by doing. I've tried watching YouTube videos and even like that, the reverse 1031 exchange. Like I want to do one again just so I can be better and more studious and learn more about doing it, because I know it's going to come up again where I will have to do it. But maybe there's a better way to go about it. So, it's all in having a great team and knowing the right people that can hopefully guide you in the right direction, because it's impossible to know everything. It's impossible to be able to do everything. So being able to rely on some people that have different strengths than you. I mean, I think you got to have that in the real estate business. That's the only way to survive that I know of. So,
Totally agree. Now, let's talk about what does the future look like for you? Like, what are you focused on these days, Cole?
so I'm starting another industrial park, right down the road from where I started this one. It'll be 70,000. It's actually 120,000 square feet worth of metal buildings split up into different sizes from 30,000 square feet down to 10,000 square feet. I've got a self-storage facility that's under construction. That's 350 units total when it gets built out, and it'll be finished in April of next year. And then I'm also actually do a couple of build to suits for Dollar Tree and Family Dollar, and I have two of those actually that'll be starting that will finish up next year as well. So started mixing a little bit of retail in with the industrial and the metal building side. And so it's something new that I've been venturing in. So
Excellent. So to close up the show before we get into the live Q&A session, Cole, we were talking about this in the green room. Now, not everybody has a ancestral steel building manufacturing company to use as an asset to grow their real estate business. What's your words of advice for somebody who's looking to scale that might not be sure like what assets they have and how they can apply those in terms of giving them some actionable advice on how to leverage those things to grow their business?
yeah, so that is my advantage is metal buildings. Fortunately, that's a pretty big expense on a lot of the items I do, but that's what I stick with now. If it doesn't involve a metal building, I don't want involved in it. And I think everybody has their strengths. They might not know them at some point, but hey, maybe you're good at plumbing. Maybe you're good at electrical. Maybe you have some equipment, can do some site work. Maybe you're good at paperwork or any kind of an engineer. So I think everybody has some kind of advantage, whether they know it or not. They just need to explore it more. And once you find out what that advantage is, I think you've got to exploit that and use that, and be able to maybe offer that to somebody that's in the real estate business and the development game and say, hey, this is what I bring to the table and this is what I can do. And I know you don't have somebody that can do that well enough, but I can. So, it's just really, it's digging deep, finding out what you do, doing a lot of trial and error and figuring out, yes, what you have the advantage at. Because I think everybody has some sort of advantage one way or the other.
I totally agree. I have a student in our mastermind that is, he's been finding these deals for this home builder that wants to get into multifamily development. And, he questioned me the other day. He was like, what do I bring to the table? I'm bringing this deal to this home builder that wants to build multifamily. What am I bringing to the table here? Because I'm just finding the deal. I'm like, listen, man, you're bringing a hell of a lot of value to the deal by bringing opportunities because everybody's looking for opportunities. And this is a company that
100%.
is starving for opportunities. So everybody brings their own skill to the table. And I just think it's incredibly important to really lean in on that skill and not get distracted from it. And that's the way you sharpen that knife over time.
Absolutely. Yeah. Cause even when people think money's tight right now, I promise you, if you had opportunities on the table, the money would find you. So
Absolutely. Cole, we're going to get to our live studio audience right now and get to some question and answers. So if y'all are listening right now and you want to get in on live question and answers and get direct access to real estate titans like Cole Bigbee, Gino Barbaro, Matt Faircloth, Reed Goosens, Ashley Kerr. Next week, we got actually, Tyler Cobble is coming on the show, huge in the industrial space. You got to get into our Facebook group, the Go Big Live Real Estate Investors group on Facebook and get access to our esteemed guests. It's completely free. I'm using this as an educational resource to provide value for people that listen to the podcast. So be sure to join. And thank you very much for coming on the show, Cole. I appreciate it.
hey, thank you.